everyone, and welcome
to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. And I am your host, Charles Long. With me, as always, is my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, and gunner, Jacob Gloth. How are you doing today, Jacob?
I'm good. I'm ready. I got my pitch. We talked about Blade Runner in the middle part between last episode and this episode because we're double recording. So you didn't get to hear that conversation.
No, Blade Runner. It was pretty good, though, wasn't it?
He liked the 2049. I like it as well.
I thought it was pretty good, except for Ryan Gosling's gun not being as good as Harrison
You really
Ford's
are
gun.
obsessed with that minor detail.
Well, no, but I was talking about it. I thought that was the most intelligent thing I said about 2049 in the last record. And you said you were going to cut out the rest of it, so I was like, I'll just say it again.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Anyway, it's my turn. I have a story this time that is kind of just a story.
Ooh.
In the sense that it's not... I mean, honestly, you could adapt it to a film or a book. It can be a TV show, but I didn't write it in like an episode format because I couldn't really figure that out in my head.
Yeah.
I just have like the story.
Okay.
So...
Tell me a story.
Tell you the story? Alright, this is called Down the Rabbit Hole.
It's a good time.
So, our protagonist is Arnold Moss. Arnold is a 40-year-old career detective who's jittery from years in dangerous positions. He's a drinker and a smoker. He's famous for cracking a conspiracy case where a tech company called Smoothcast was experimenting on patients at a hospital.
What were they doing to the patients at the hospital?
I didn't write that down, but they're just experimenting on them for, like, you know, technical stuff. They wanted to, like, put technology in them or something.
Okay, let's say they were jamming wires in their brains and seeing how, like...
It's intentionally vague, though. I don't want to actually get into what it is, because that's important for where the story goes. His partner is Daryl Keats. Daryl is Arnold's partner. He's a young officer who is very similar to Arnold, but a lot more skeptical of his big conspiracy theories. So he's always trying to find like the big, connecting conspiracy theories that are behind bad things happening to people in the city.
So like...
He's not very jittery, and he's calm and lightheaded.
So it's like... I feel like in the precinct, Arnold getting this case right and solving this one big conspiracy case is like, he's famous for it, but within the precinct, it's like, yeah, a broken clock is right twice a day. He's, if you say everything is conspiracy theory, well then, you're probably right.
We'll get there. It all makes sense.
Maybe that's their attitude.
The genre of this show is a thriller, so it's all going to start making sense. So
I'll never talk if all things make sense.
I guess. So Arnold and Daryl, this is the pilot, or the beginning of the show, depending if this is a movie or whatever, are drinking at the bar when Arnold decides to go home. Upon walking in, he finds that his wife, Jean, has been murdered. So the show is about the murder of his wife. Police come and tell Arnold to not get involved, and he's put on temporary leave so that he can grieve. As police are collecting evidence, he notices a crunched-up note in his wife's hand and takes it. It is a paper from his case file on Smoothcast. He takes this to mean there's a Smoothcast connection to her murder, and begins researching them again with his partner, the only one who believes him. So he brings this up to the police, and they just whatever.
Was it definitely a murder?
Yeah, she's definitely murdered.
Okay.
He walks in, she's bloody and stabbed and stuff. Very clearly been killed.
Because I think it would be funny if, and this has nothing to do with the actual show, if it was like the whole show.
Yeah.
It's like him trying to find this conspiracy theory, and at the end it's revealed that she just had a heart attack. It was like looking at the thing as she, and like had her hand on the page as she had the heart attack, and she just gripped it automatically and died like that. And he was like, fuck.
Well, the show is not funny.
It's not funny.
So it's very serious. I said it was a thriller, remember?
Yes, I remember.
So from there, it's kind of about Arnold's search to find how his wife died and who murdered his wife. And so from there, he's going to break into Smoothcast headquarters. He's on leave from the police station. Yeah. Also breaking and entering is illegal. So what he's doing is not okay. With Daryl. and they steal files related to testing an experimental device. Because they're like, the whole episode or scene or whatever, however we decide to portray this narrative, is about like them like breaking in, and then they go through and they're like trying to find something on Smoothcast, and they can't find any connections between them and his wife, but they break into like the Department of Innovation, and they find like a bunch of notes about experiments and all this stuff. And he's like, I thought I shut this down, like, what are they doing now? I thought they had new management or whatever. And he's like, oh, they're back to their same old stuff. And Daryl this whole time is a bit skeptical. He's like, well, it could be, they're just working on something else. It doesn't have to be like experiments again.
They could be experimenting on monkeys, which is legal.
Or just, other tech stuff, like not on people. They could just be like testing
AI.
Well, they don't have to be testing on something. They could just be like...
Yeah, they're testing AI cars.
Well, we'll see. So he goes to the police station after that and finds nothing on Smoothcast, because he's like trying to get more information. He's trying to see like what are they doing right now, and he opens the computers. Nothing on them at all. All the data is gone on them. And this is a big moment where he like freaks out. He's like, where's all the information on Smoothcast? And during this like freak out, he runs into Jakob, who is in charge of his wife's murder. He's the detective, and he's at the precinct. And it's this weird moment, because you can tell that Jakob's like a little suspicious of Arnold. It sort of seems like he thinks that he killed his wife.
Okay.
And the weirdest part is that Jakob took Arnold's desk, and so when Arnold's like at his computer, Jakob comes up and he's like, hey, dude, what are you doing in my desk? It's like, this is my desk. He's like, no, we moved you out of there. You gotta go. And he's like, you're on leave, you can't be working. He's like, I need to find this. And he's like, arguing with Jakob, and he gets kicked out of the police precinct because he's on leave. And so now he's starting to think, like, is Jakob like in league with Smoothcast? Are they like working? Is he like getting paid by them? Is the whole precinct getting paid by this tech company?
And maybe Jakob is a detective that he doesn't like and doesn't like him, but they have like a sort of mutual respect. Like neither of them thinks that the other one is dirty. They respect each other to be like they're not dirty. But Jakob sees his dead wife, and the only person who can give him an alibi is his partner, who would do anything for him.
Yeah.
And then Arnold's got his own reasons for believing they're dirty. So maybe it's like a
Well, I mean, I just sort of want to portray that Arnold does not like Jakob. He sees him as some sort of like upstart kid, and Jakob is suspicious of Arnold and sees him like as an old senile man.
Yeah. How old is he?
I think he's in his mid-40s. Okay. He's not that old, but actually, he can be in his mid-50s. How about that?
Yeah.
So he goes to the courts to try to get more information, because he can't go to the police precinct anymore. He already went to their HQ, and he finds that all of the case that he brought against Smoothcast was dismissed for having too little evidence. And he's like, what? So like this case that I spent my career, that it made me famous, was ultimately dismissed.
Wait, how does he not know that?
I don't know, it happened recently, and it just got dismissed. So it was like a big thing for him, and the case finished recently. Like he brought his evidence to like the police station to indict Smoothcast like a couple weeks before his wife was murdered, and the case was scheduled like a couple weeks after, and they dismissed it for not having enough evidence. And he's starting to think like they destroyed the evidence, like someone got in there, destroyed the evidence for Smoothcast, so that they wouldn't get in trouble for this. And so remember when I told you that the hospital was working with Smoothcast for the experiments?
Yeah.
So they could experiment on patients. Well, he goes to the hospital next, because that's his last lead. Like, he's got to figure out what's going on. And he finds out that Smoothcast is working with them again, and their new parent company called Elements. So Smoothcast and the hospital are both bought by the same parent company, which is called Elements. And he finds out that he couldn't find any evidence of experimentation in the hospital. But after looking up elements later, he finds out that they're big on mental health, particularly like severe mental illnesses like schizophrenia or dementia or
multiple personality disorder.
Yeah, so like all those like really severe diseases. And so he starts coming up with a theory like maybe they're testing at those facilities, because that would, you know, be helpful for them, because he's like thinking like, oh, they wouldn't believe someone from that, like in that facility, like you wouldn't believe someone with dementia that they're being tested on because they have dementia. They don't remember anything and they make up stuff a lot of the time. So researches them, like starts looking into the facilities, goes back to his house, and starts going through his wife's stuff. He finds a brochure to Elements Mental Institute.
Oh.
A place, it's the slogan is a place for those with severe conditions only. Wait, why did I write that as the slogan? That's a really dumb slogan.
Only for severe conditions only.
No, I said
Will shock you.
Place for severe conditions only, which is kind of a shitty slogan, but that's what I wrote down.
And maybe he finds it. Where does he find it? The brochure. Like
it's in his wife's like little nook office in their kitchen.
Okay, so it's like not where
they have a small house, so they have like a little nook office for her, and he has office at work, so he doesn't have an office at the house.
Yeah, but it was obviously not meant for him to see. It was not put out in the open for him to see. It was like something.
It was tucked in a drawer. Yeah.
His wife was hiding it from him.
Mm-hmm. So now he's starting to think that Element set him up for the murder of his wife, because he's thinking like, okay, something about this is a little off. Like there's a lot of evidence, because like Jakob is continually throughout this story like saying that it could be him, and he's like, he put the brochures here. Like he starts to figure it out, you know. All these lines start to connect, because throughout the story we're gonna have Jakob continually like ask him like, what were you doing? Like you were at the bar. Like, this is a little suspicious, and he's like, were you fighting with your wife? And he's like, well, you know, it hadn't been, like, super close, and he's, like, he's interviewing. We're gonna, like, sort of split the narrative into A and B stories, so throughout, while Arnold's investigating, we see Jakob, like, interviewing certain people around them, and he sees, like, oh, they were fighting a lot, like, oh, you know, people are talking about how their marriage wasn't very stable. And he starts to realize all this, and that's when the police break in and yell that he's under arrest. And that's when he's sure that Elements set him up for the murder of his wife. And then we have sort of like a fugitive sort of plot going on, where he's like running away from the police while also trying to solve like who actually did it. Wait, what did I just write here? Daryl is gone. Arnie assumes that they killed him, so we can't find Daryl anymore. Daryl being his partner, who was with him throughout all the investigating up till now when he was at home. And he tries to reach out to him, and he calls him, and he can't pick up, and he calls his wife, and his wife says, I told you already, Daryl is dead. That's what she says to him, which is weird, because he hadn't called her already.
When did Daryl die?
Yeah. She's like crying because she seems distressed, and he's like, "But you already told me that Daryl is dead." Now he's thinking that like someone impersonated him, or something. You know, it's like this big. Everything's against him now. Everything like flipped on him, and he can't. You know, they destroyed all of his life's work on setting up this case. Yeah. And he desperately is trying to collect the evidence to prove himself innocent.
Maybe he's got like one place. You know, I hid paper files of all the stuff, you know, in a, you know, trailer out in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico. Or something like, because I imagine this guy's super conspiratorial. He's got, like, backups.
Yeah, he's got backup plan. He's got all these files hidden in this... in
different places.
A secret safe house in the city, maybe.
And then he gets there, you know, I'm imagining it's like, maybe he drives out to the desert, to the safe house. Yeah. Or, like, this deserted area. And he's, like, he's driving there, and he sees these plumes of smoke in the air, like... Yeah. Highlighted by the moon, and he gets there, and like the whole, you know, place is up in flames, and he's like, who did this or whatever, and he, you know, maybe you can find like a matchbook or something, a clue, see tire tracks and be like, those are the only Elements uses those tires because they're, you know, GMO-free, environmentally safe, made out of bamboo trees or whatever.
Maybe. That might not track with my ending, which we'll get to soon, but I like the idea of him, like, having some secret hideout with all of his stuff. Yeah. Because next he's going to break into Smoothcast, head of innovation's home, and interrogate him. So he's gonna kidnap him, bring him back to, like, you know, his safe house somewhere. And I imagine it's gonna be really brutal. Like, have you seen Enemy? Enemy, is that what the movie's called? It's with Hugh Jackman and Prisoners. That's what it is. Enemy is also with Jake Gyllenhaal, but that's a completely different movie. Yeah. That's with, like, his twin. That's
and there's like mind spiders or whatever.
Yeah. Prisoners is what I meant.
Yeah, where like Hugh Jackman is brutally
torturing Paul Dano.
Paul Dano, the Riddler.
Yeah.
Wolverine beats up the Riddler real bad.
Yep.
For stealing his kids.
But, like, he didn't.
Yeah, it was his grandma, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it wasn't that guy's grandma. That guy was also a kid that was kidnapped.
Yeah, he was. But the Paul Dano character was part of a whole family of people who'd been kidnapping.
Yeah, by these people. Yeah.
For years, right?
Yeah, and drugging them and making them solve mazes and killing them or not killing them, depending on what they were doing.
Yeah. Hugh Jackman ever get his daughter back in that movie?
Yeah, but then the movie ends with him being trapped in the hole. Actually, the last scene in that movie, spoilers for this movie, which I've already spoiled.
And also came out like 5 years ago or whatever.
The movie ends with Hugh Jackman in the hole in the backyard of the grandmother who was kidnapping people.
Yeah.
She's been put in prison. They don't know where Hugh Jackman is. Hugh Jackman is also, you know, a fugitive because he beat up Paul Dano, and they know that now. The police know that. Yeah. But they can't find him. And it ends with... like the police leaving the house after they've dug up some people because it's getting cold.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, we're gonna go, because all the kids were, like, buried in the backyard, and so they're, like, digging them up and excavating the yard. And Jake Gyllenhaal's about to leave, and he hears, like, a whistle.
Yeah.
And that's where it ends. So you don't know if they got him, but, like, you think that he does. Yeah.
And he chokeslammed Paul Dano early in that movie, if I remember correctly.
Jake Gyllenhaal?
No, Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, yeah. I don't think Jake Gyllenhaal did.
No, Jake Gyllenhaal was all again. He didn't want to torture Paul Dano.
Yeah, because he realized he had a mental disability.
Yeah, well, yeah. Didn't Paul Dano help kidnap the kids?
No, he just knew that they were kidnapped, but he had a mental disability, so he couldn't. Okay. He couldn't, like, explain it well to them. But he did know, so. I guess Hugh Jackman was technically right when he kept saying, but he was awful. Some of the torture in that was just horrendous.
Really fucked up. I still think about that, like, shower scene.
Yeah, with the hot and cold. Anyway, so torture scene. And after hours of torture, Brian tells him that everything he needs is at Elements HQ.
Yeah.
So Arnie breaks into at night the Elements HQ and searches the place for the research room, only to find a small office. Like, he opens the research room and it's like a very small room. He's expecting, like, this big, expansive place with Jakob sitting in there with the shotgun. Arnie yells that Jakob is, like, you know, in with Elements. He's, like, in their pocket, while Jakob calmly explains that Arnie has lost his mind and is under arrest for the murder of his wife. Yeah. You know, he's, like, sitting in this small little office that's, like, the innovation room. It's just, like, this really, you know...
I'm imagining it's, like,
small, tiny... Not a very expansive innovation program they have at this mental institute.
Well, I'm imagining it as, like, kind of, like... And I'm taking some artistic license with the shot, but it's, like, it is this huge, gigantic, expansive room, but it's all in black. And there's this one light that's shining down from the top of the building, of the roof, and there's Jakob's, like, sitting, like Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, just sitting in a chair, you know, behind a little desk with his feet up, reading a book or something, you know, with a
I want it to be showed that the innovation department is not what he thought it was.
Yeah.
The innovation department is not nearly as expansive as it should be to prove his conspiracy theory.
Or maybe it's like... When he opens the door, it's this huge expanse building, but as Jakob and him, you know,
maybe it shrinks.
It, like,
gets
shrinks
smaller
in the
and smaller and smaller.
And, like, as reality.
Yeah, so you can have that. You have that shot with everything else being black.
Yeah.
And as they talk,
he, like, walks forward, and the shots get closer and closer until it's very obviously they're in like a
very small room,
like a broom closet with a desk in it. You know?
or maybe to help show the differences of perspective for Jakob's, like from his over the shoulder, it's a small room, and from Arnold's over the shoulder, it's a large room.
Yeah.
So you can see their differences in perspective of the room. So he gets put under arrest, and in the interrogation room, the mystery is explained. Yeah. So this is the end of the show. Jakob is interrogating Arnold, and he tells Arnold that he killed his wife after a fight about his deteriorating mental health. He was fired from the police force, he tells him, years earlier, for bringing a case against a TV company about with bogus charges.
Or maybe it's like obviously faked evidence or something like
it's just like insane the stuff he's telling, like, because it's the whole series. They're experimenting in hospitals, and they're like, no, the connection is that they sell TVs to the hospital. They have the same parent company, so there's like a discounted rate, and it's like easier to, get them through. Like Smoothcast, it's a television company. They make TVs. They're like Samsung, all right? And the experiment is a new TV prototype they're selling to the hospitals. It's just like, it's like they have a voice remote or something. That's what it is. It's like something really simple. And Arnold is like realizing, or he's like, it's clear to you that he thinks it's all even a bigger setup. Like, this is what they've done to me. They've set it all up that it's going to be, like, it's actually, they're saying it's just a TV company. They're going to hide all the evidence. And then they're going to send him away to the hospital as just another experiment. And it ends with him strapped to a bed, wheeled to an elevator. And Jakob watches the door shut. And it's like, it's from like his Jakob's over the shoulder as the door shut and Arnold screams. So the intention there is that it's somewhat mysterious whether or not he, was right or not. Yeah. Whether or not the conspiracy theory is correct or not. But there's some hints that I plotted throughout.
I get it.
That it was all in his head.
I think it would be, but I think there should be like an equal amount of hints that's not all in his head. Because I think, or not an equal amount, but
Well, I mean, there is some weird stuff.
Yeah.
That like is not completely explained. But there is plenty of hints, like in that interrogation room, he's gonna talk about he's gonna be like, well, my partner, what about Daryl? Like, where's Daryl? He can explain. He's like, Daryl died years ago, okay? He was your partner, he died 4 years ago.
Yeah.
When you were on your routine traffic stop or whatever. And Daryl died. You've been talking about this for years. We put you on leave, and then you brought up that bogus case. So it's talking about his his post-traumatic stress led to this, and also his deteriorating mental ability, which led to him coming up with this crazy conspiracy theory. Maybe he has dementia or whatever. I don't know. But the idea in my head was that the whole thing is about him investigating this story when he's the actual murderer because he killed his wife. Because she, brought him the brochure
and was
talking about it, and she was holding that piece of paper because she was trying to explain to him, Smoothcast isn't real, it's not, you're losing your mind. And that's when he kills her.
Well, I think it would be interesting if there was, the evidence that he put into place was missing. And, there was some evidence that there was a cover-up by Smoothcast going on. And I think a good, final shot for the character of Arnold would be, he's being watched by Yakov, and he's being rolled into the elevator, and it closes, and he screams, something rude or cruel or mean, or he says something to Yakov, or it's like, I'm right! I'm right! And he's he closes, the door closes, and you can't hear him anymore. And Yakov just looks up at the TV, and he sees this, commercial for this brand new invention brought to you by Smoothcast, where it's the TV remote can read your mind. It's wonder where they did all the testing for that. And it's it's implied that there was something going on that he
I feel like
knew
that's a
about.
little too obvious.
Yeah, maybe with
too
the
blatant.
psychic TV remote, but
Yeah.
you know, I think
It should be subtle that it can go either way. I like the because I want the ending. I want the person to think when the show or movie ends or whatever, they think like, I want people to come out at the theater, or their living rooms or whatever, and they think like some people are gonna say like, oh yeah, and he was the murderer, and other people are like, no, it was a big conspiracy. That's what it was. I want there to be difference in opinion.
I think that would be good, and then
there's evidence equally supporting either side. I'd like for the imagination, with the partner and stuff. And then for the evidence supporting that it was actually a big conspiracy theory, and maybe he was a little mentally, or not that like all of it, what he was saying is true. Like they actually killed his partner, and then Jakob was in on it.
Yeah.
Because if he was right, Jakob has to be in on it, in on Smoothcast's plan. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dig it.
So that's my show. Down the Rabbit Hole.
I like it
That's
a
what it's
lot.
called. Big thriller.
And I think that an epilogue for the show, which would be nice, would be like 2 rookie cops hanging out. They're at his shack that was burned down, and it's they're implying that he burnt it down.
Yeah.
But we didn't see him burn it down. There would be no reason for him to burn it down. Mm-hmm. There's like he's just some crazy bastard, whatever.
Yeah.
And he, the rookie cops are walking around, and maybe one of them is like walking through the thing, and they look down and they, find like a thumb drive or something in like a fireproof box, and they open it and they just like find a thumb drive, and in complete silence they take it, and then we cut to them, driving home, and they're looking at it, and they're, console, and they're just kind of staring at it, and they're driving home. They get home, they're staring at it in dinner, think about it in their pocket or whatever, and then they finally like plug it in to their computer and start looking at it, and we don't see what they see. We just see like the screen light up, and like maybe you hear like the Elements like jingle, like doo doo ding or whatever, and it's just like, and his eyes like widen, and then it ends.
Yeah. That helps add some sort of evidence behind the theory that it's...
but
that
it could also be just some crazy, thing that this lunatic Arnold...
Yeah, wrote all this crazy stuff in there, yeah.
Like, wrote, or like, programmed that noise to happen, or whatever. It could just be the stock reports and the guys looking like, oh my god, I should invest in these guys. It could be any number of things. Yeah. We just don't know. I think that would be cool.
I think it'd be interesting as well to have, like, when this movie or this show is made, right? Mm-hmm. I love about American Psycho is that in one of the scenes with Willem Dafoe and Christian Bale when they're doing the interrogation I'm talking about, have you seen the movie? Yeah, so in that they did Willem Dafoe did 4 different takes, I think it was, where one where he was acting like he knew Christian Bale was the murderer, one where he was acting like he suspected he was the murderer, and one where he didn't know at all he was the murderer. So 3 different takes. And I'd like to do that with this, with Jakob.
And some of the
so Jakob would be like, he like believes him, so one where he like is very obviously like the bad guy and is paid by Element. A take where he
believes
like
that...
definitely thinks that Arnold is messed up and there's no conspiracy theory at all.
I think that...
So going back and forth between those two, I think would help sort of exacerbate the idea that like, he's either good or bad, like, because then the audience will be confused by his acting. Like, they don't know if this is a bad guy or just somebody who's genuinely concerned and thinks that this guy murdered his wife.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it would be good if there was there would be the take where he's, definitely a Element stooge and he's taking money.
Yeah.
It'd be the take where he's, a cop who's investigating this murder. Maybe there's a take where he's like, this is a man who is genuinely sick and I need to help, because he's a danger to himself and others. Yeah. And it's like, that's more of a caring persona, whereas the other two are more interested in, getting him off the street for whatever reason. Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's a good idea for a TV show, Down the Rabbit Hole.
Yeah. Well, it's a fun little idea. I don't know.
Fun idea.
I don't see how it could be a TV show perfectly. It would have to be a short series.
I think it would have to be a miniseries if it was anything.
Because the story isn't particularly long. Could be a film, because, films are, 90 minutes.
Let's say the first episode ends with our boy Arnold getting home and finding his dead wife.
That wouldn't make any sense. I only got 2 minutes of material for that. It would have to end with, because you'd have to end with him.
You show his day in the life of this guy, of this cop.
For most of the show, just like
for
him.
For the first episode.
First
episode, you introduce the characters in the world and the people, and you end with his wife being murdered.
Second episode. Pretty short episodes, 20 minutes or so.
We'd be making an hour.
I don't think I could do an hour.
Well, we'd be writing it.
Okay.
We develop the characters.
There's a lot of fluff in there in the first episode. I'm sorry, folks.
Not the first. Not at the end of the first.
Literally fluffy show. Charlie's having me right here.
The end of the first episode is Arnold in custody, talking with Yakov in the interrogation room. Second episode ends with the cabin burning down, with all the extra stuff.
Wait, no, you're having a lot happen now in 1 and 2 episodes.
And then third episode, and there's only 3 episodes.
No, you just gave me an idea. It would be interesting to have the story have sort of a split time narrative where it goes back back between him in the jail cell in the interrogation room and him the actual story.
Yeah.
So he ends up getting imprisoned. But then that would kind of defeat the point of the mystery. So maybe not.
But I think it would be good if he was in the interrogation room for some of episode 2, and you think he's been caught, and Yakov's blaming him for his wife's murder, and then he gets out of the interrogation room.
No, because he's I don't.
We don't have enough evidence to hold you, but I think it's you. They're how about you go fuck yourself, Yakov? How about you go Yakov? That's what he says.
It's a really stupid joke.
What?
Well, thanks everyone for listening to Charlie's awful jokes and my long
ideas.
Talk about my idea. I'm sorry.
Thank you everyone for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, and with me as always has been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, and gunner, Jacob Gloth. I just realized I never said my name. My name's Charles Lung. And if you liked what you heard here and you want to hear more, you can follow, subscribe, this sort of stuff. And you can please follow us on Twitter at VRP Podcast. And you can follow me on Twitter at Charles_Lungs. Thank you very much and have a beautiful day.
Bye.